Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest rock bands, albums, gigs of all time, based on listening to thousands of albums and going to hundreds of gigs over many years. If you like what you see, please press the red button to subscribe. It's free, it's easy to do, and it will only take a moment. Thank you very much. Okay, today I am going to be featuring the Black Crowes and their recently re-released what is now, was meant to be a 30th anniversary album release. Now it's a 31st anniversary album release of their debut album, Shake Your Moneymaker. So a little bit more on that later. First, how did I get into the Black Crowes? Well, I was right there at the beginning of their release for this album. All the way back in 1990, I saw on music television the video for the song Jealous Again. And I really liked the song. It was a good old rock and roll song with a harder edge. The band themselves, they kind of looked a little bit like Guns N' Roses. Also similar to another band that we had in the UK called the Choir Boys, who were doing a similar kind of music and had a similar kind of look. And all of that was kind of an amalgamation of the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, and a couple of British band, The Faces and Humble Pie. And it was kind of a mixture of those bands to create their own harder edge rock and roll style music. The debut album was full of great songs, and it was very successful for them, and especially in America where they proved to be very popular, but also over in Europe as well. They were doing great guns. The band themselves were formed in Georgia in 1984, so a long time before they were able to get the success that they strived for. And they all played around the club scene, had a lot of popularity within the club scene, but they just couldn't break in to get that major label record interest until 1990 came around. Their first two albums were big hits, as I said. Shake Your Moneymaker, very popular, and they followed it up with this second album, The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, which changed their formula a little bit, a bit more of a harder edge to it, and a few longer songs on there, and not so good time rock and roll. And it was a formula that would be changed even more over subsequent albums, as they really battled to find their place in music. Now you've got to remember, in the early 90s, the two biggest bands in the world at that time from a rock point of view were Guns N' Roses and Metallica, and this was just before grunge started to hit. So the Black Crowes struggled to find their place in the grunge era. So much so that 2002 comes along and the band disbands for the first time. Not for very long though. 2005 they're back together again with a few different members. It was a bit of a revolving lineup. There was the core members of singer Chris Robinson, his brother and guitarist Rich Robinson, and drummer Steve Gorman. They were kind of like the three core members of the band, with a few other ins and outs along the way. And in fact, I should mention, Steve Gorman, the drummer, he has written a brilliant book about his life in the Black Crowes. If you want to read a really good behind the scenes book, this book, Hard to Handle it's called, named after one of their songs, is a brilliant insight into the workings or non-workings of the Black Crowes, because they yet again broke up in 2015. because singer Chris Robinson basically wanted ownership of the band, which his brother and Gorman refused to give him. So they broke up again. But surprise, surprise, in 2019, this time just Chris and Rich Robinson announced that they were putting the band back together and they were going to do an anniversary tour to celebrate Shake Your Moneymaker, which, because of COVID, has never yet happened. Who knows if they can stay friends long enough for it to actually happen in 2022. We will find out. Okay, I would guess the amount of money on the table would say yes, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's have a look at this debut album. As I say, this is a re-release, what was a 30th anniversary re-release, although it only actually was released as on vinyl this year. Very true to the original in terms of the cover artwork, and this is a limited edition version. Inside there is just an illustration and some photos and stating who some credits there. And nothing really special to this. It really is just a straightforward reproduction of the original, and this is a limited green vinyl. Very nice, and this is very hard to actually get hold of now. It did sell out very, very quickly. And as you would expect, I expect most vinyl nowadays done heavyweight vinyl and sounds great. Okay, so what about the album itself? Well, as always, I will pick my favorite 4 tracks, and it will kick off with the song that kicks off the album, Twice as Hard. A great opening song, got a good riff to it, got a great sing-along chorus. Twice as hard as it was the first time I said goodbye. Really, really love this song. Great guitar playing on it, and a great way to kick off the album. The next track was the track that first introduced me to the Black Crowes. Second track on the album, Jealous Again. A good time, rock and roll kind of song. Again, great riff, great chorus. Can sing along, can dance along to this song, and it was a fun video that went along with this as well, just kind of following the band on the road. The next track I will pick is the big ballad, She Talks to Angels. Now, I've mentioned before on some videos, I'm not particularly a great fan of ballads, of rock ballads, but this one is done very, very well. It's acoustic based, and standout performer here is Chris Robinson, the vocalist. He does a great job in terms of delivering the vocals. You can feel the emotion and the passion, and it's a really good song, and probably one of their most popular songs. And then the last track I would choose, it's kind of the last track on the album. There is an almost hidden track called Mercy Sweet Mary, but for me the proper final track on the album is Stare It Cold. Great song, real fast rocker kind of song, probably the most the hardest, the most aggressive song on the album, and a great way to finish the album, and yeah, good song. So there's a lot of good songs on here. Every song is a really good song, and I would definitely put it down as a classic album. And I could certainly understand why the tour, the reunion tour of just the two brothers that was announced was very, very popular. And although it's not happened yet, I believe ticket sales were very, very strong for it, because they were going to play the debut album in full. And one of the things that that benefited the Black Crowes in the early days was these shorter, punchier songs. Their downfall, in my opinion, apart from a lot of the infighting, was that some of their albums really started to get, they started to lose the killer shorter songs. And it's something that many bands have done, where they get into the more elongated types of songs. A brilliant example of this is the Amorica album, which was their third album, and really it kind of killed them off for many reasons. Number one, look at the album cover. It was not a popular choice of album cover against for the retailers. And remember, in those days, retail was king, not like it is today where it's all internet retail, or most of it, or streaming. Album covers did matter in those days, and that did not help them in terms of getting it on the shelves of the big sellers for CD sales in those days. Another problem with this album, there were too many long songs on there, too many songs on there, and there was a real lack of a good punchy 4 minute single on there. Something that really had made them famous with that debut album. So the debut album really does stand out as being very different to pretty much the rest of their catalogue. They got an album over here by my side or by your side, can't remember, that kind of went back to that formula a little bit. And also this album Lions also did a similar thing, but by that point they kind of lost it, and they'd gone back to more being like a theatre type of band. Okay, so that's a little bit about their music, and let's take a quick look at Rock T-shirts by the Sea. So, what were the Black Crowes like live? Well, this is where they really did come into their own most of the time. My first exposure to the Black Crowes was in 1991, so 30 years ago to this year. And it was at this festival, the legendary Monsters of Rock Festival at Donington Park, and you can see from that shirt, here is the ticket. The headliners that day were AC/DC, supported by Metallica, Motley Crue, Queensryche, and opening the day, the Black Crowes. Can you imagine? I was so lucky to be at many of these Donington Rock Festivals in the 80s and 90s. And look at that lineup. In one day, AC/DC, Metallica, and Motley Crue, Queensryche, and Black Crowes. Legendary, legendary. And it was a legendary day. How did the Black Crowes do? Well, there was a lot of excitement for them. They, as I said previously, they'd become very popular in the UK and across the world with their debut album, and a lot of the people in the field that day were excited to see the Black Crowes, including myself. This is a band whose history is fraught with snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Again, I recommend read the Steve Gorman book, and you'll see why. The crowd were anticipating this band, really wanted to see a great show. And the band themselves performed fine, and Chris Robinson did great as a frontman, but they let themselves down with the set list. They've got a brilliant debut album full of amazing songs, and they played 11 songs, quite a lot for an opening band, and but only 5 of them were from the debut album. The problem was the other songs that they chose, because they played a couple of, at that time, unreleased songs. Now, these 2 unreleased songs are brilliant songs. They were taken from the forthcoming, at that time, Southern Harmony album, and they're Sting Me and My Morning Song. 2 of my favourite ever Black Crow songs. I think those 2 songs are awesome. But we'd never heard them before. And we're in a field and we're out for a good time. And to hear 2 new songs, especially when one of them is nearly 10 minutes long, it kind of kills the atmosphere a little bit of the gig. And not only that, they throw in 4 cover songs as well. And for a rock and metal crowd, some of these cover songs were a little bit obscure. So it killed the atmosphere and the energy that had been pent up there in the crowd, which was such a shame. Because, like I said, most of the time the Black Crowes are really a great live band. And in fact, on the next time I saw them was on the tour for Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, and it was an amazing gig. It was an indoor show, and it was a really brilliant gig. So on that particular day, they just didn't quite get it for me. It was great to have seen them at that point in their career, but certainly I've seen better Black Crow shows than that first one. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the Black Crowes. I will talk about more about the Black Crowes in future episodes, because they have got some other great albums in their discography. And in fact, even though it's not a huge discography, I would normally choose my favourite 4 albums for you to go and check out. But I'm only going to pick 2 in this instance because, as I say, not a great, huge discography. In fact, there are only, let me quickly count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 albums, one of which I haven't got up here. 8 studio albums. There's this kind of like a non-studio album, which is called, well, it's kind of 2 versions of unreleased tracks. But the 2 albums that I would recommend is, of course, the debut album Shake Your Moneymaker, and this one as well, Southern Harmony and Musical Companion. Okay, please press the red button to subscribe to this channel. Hope you enjoyed that, and I hope I see you again. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, as always, we rock!